Late February, early March is the time for maple sugaring in Geauga County. We're here at the Geauga Park District's Swine Creek Reservation, and everything's starting to wake up, and we do a lot of maple sugaring programs for school groups, the public groups. Spring is the time when the sap is flowing up the tree. So when we get a group here to begin with, we talk about how all trees have sap, and this time of year, the cold nights and warm days, force that sap up the trees. So that's how we kind of start off. The next stop in on our tour is the history of tapping and collecting. And here you can see all sorts of tools that over the years people have used to collect. Nowadays we might use something like this, a bag, or we might use tubing, and we use a power drill to tap a tree. If you go back in time a little bit, back to like the time of the Civil War, they used this thing called a Risin bit, or a metal bucket, to collect the sap and to tap with. Back further in time, the pioneer era. Instead of metal buckets, they used wooden buckets. They'd use wooden spiles made out of sumac or elderberry. Native Americans, they used birch bark baskets. They might have used a tomahawk, an axe, to make a gash in the tree, using a little bit of a bark chip to direct that sap into the basket. All right, to make maple syrup, basically we need to cook the sap down. Nowadays we use a fancy sugar house, but back in the day, native people, they would take hot rocks from a fire, and they'd use fork sticks like this, and they would take them over to a hollow log, which we had nearby, full of sap. They'd take this hot rock and put it in the sap to cook it down. Back in those days, they were probably more likely making sugar instead of syrup, but add enough hot rocks in there, it's going to cook this sap down, get that water out of the sap to make syrup, or in their time, sugar. When you get cold nights below freezing and warm days that get up, into the 40s, then that creates like a nice steady flow of sap. When you have days like we did a couple weeks ago, or even last week, it was really warm, the sap slows down. As soon as the buds open up on the trees, the season is pretty much over. The syrup is kind of buddy, not so good tasting. So I'm walking down the history trail here, checking out how the pioneers made maple syrup a long time ago till late 1800s. Over here we have around the Civil War period of time on how they made maple syrup. We also have a sugar house where you can go in and learn how we make maple syrup today. You can get a taste of it. You can also head out in the woods. We have horses that will be pulling a sap sled, and you can go out and help us gather sap in the woods that will be cooked in our sugar house. Live music, costume characters, a celebration of spring. We have it going on out here in Geauga County.